Millions of your taxpayer dollars potentially wasted on the East Belt Bridge that's been under construction for years.
It was meant to be a symbol of progress, a bridge that would redefine Houston's skyline and stand as a marvel of modern engineering. The Houston Ship Channel Bridge was designed to be one of the most elegant and ambitious cable-stayed bridges in the United States, a billion-dollar statement of innovation and confidence. But what was meant to be a triumph of design quickly turned into one of the most expensive engineering disasters in American history. Today, the bridge stands as a cautionary tale, a story of how ambition and aesthetics can overshadow the fundamental principle of engineering: safety first. When construction began in the late 2010s, the project was celebrated as a masterpiece in the making. Its sleek twin-tower design promised not only to expand traffic capacity over the busy ship channel, but also to transform Houston's industrial landscape into something iconic. Yet beneath the striking renderings and bold promises, serious structural issues were already brewing, issues that would later force officials to halt construction entirely. Everything changed after a bridge collapse in 2018. The tragedy triggered nationwide inspections, and when auditors reviewed the Houston project, they uncovered something alarming: 21 critical design flaws. These weren't minor miscalculations. They were structural risks so severe that experts warned the bridge could fail before it was even completed. The findings sent shockwaves through Texas's Department of Transportation and ultimately led to a full stop of all work. Within months, engineers were ordered to dismantle what had already been built. What followed was a billion-dollar lesson in failure, a project that had to be entirely redesigned from the ground up. At first, everything seemed under control. The Houston Ship Channel Bridge, part of a massive infrastructure upgrade for the region, was rising fast. Towering pylons began to take shape, and contractors were confident they were building a landmark for the next century. But behind the scenes, unease was growing among engineers. The bridge's ambitious cable-stayed design, while visually stunning, pushed the limits of existing standards. Its massive main span was supported by slender concrete pylons that looked graceful on paper, yet in practice, the load distribution between them was dangerously uneven. Early stress tests began to reveal unusual vibrations and excessive tension in several key cables. Instead of addressing these early red flags, project managers reportedly dismissed them as manageable. Then came the turning point. Following the deadly collapse of a pedestrian bridge in Miami in 2018, the Texas Department of Transportation initiated an internal review of large infrastructure projects across the state. When independent auditors reached Houston, they uncovered what would soon become one of the most alarming reports in recent U.S. engineering history. The audit identified 21 critical design flaws, from insufficient reinforcement in the pylons to miscalculations in the deck's load-bearing structure. In simple terms, the bridge's core design couldn't safely carry the traffic it was meant to support. Some of the anchor points for the stay cables were found to be so weak that they risked catastrophic failure under high winds or heavy truckloads. Experts warned that if construction continued, the bridge could collapse before its completion. The report compared some of the design missteps to fundamental engineering oversights, typically found in student projects, not billion-dollar public works. When these findings became public, outrage erupted. How could a project of this scale, backed by top engineering firms and state oversight, reach such a dangerous stage unnoticed? The answer lay in a toxic mix of ambition, political pressure, and misplaced priorities. When the audit results hit the desks of state officials in Austin, the reaction was immediate and brutal. Construction was halted overnight. What had been a proud, fast-moving megaproject suddenly became a crime scene for engineers. The bridge, still incomplete, stood eerily silent over the channel, its unfinished towers frozen mid-air, a monument to miscalculation. The Texas Department of Transportation ordered a full engineering investigation. Crews were told not to touch a single cable until the structure's integrity was verified. Within weeks, the verdict was clear. Parts of the bridge were unsafe even to stand beneath. Cracks had already begun to form in the pylon segments due to uneven stress distribution, and several stay cable anchor points showed alarming levels of strain. The decision was unavoidable. Everything built so far, including entire bridge segments worth hundreds of millions of dollars, had to be demolished. It was one of the costliest mid-project reversals in U.S. infrastructure history. The financial fallout was staggering. Initial estimates put the total loss at over $1 billion, including demolition, redesign, and years of delay. Lawsuits followed almost immediately. Engineering firms blamed contractors. Contractors blamed the state's oversight system. Politicians blamed overly experimental design choices. But beyond the finger-pointing, the truth was simpler and more painful. The bridge had failed long before the first concrete was poured. Its very concept, prioritizing aesthetics over structural resilience, had doomed it from the start. The disaster also triggered a political storm. Critics accused state officials of chasing prestige rather than practicality. Texas wanted a bridge to rival the Golden Gate, one analyst said, and ended up with a $1 billion warning sign instead. By the end of that year, what remained of the bridge was dismantled piece by piece. The dream was gone, replaced by a sobering question. How could the pursuit of beauty turn into such an expensive lesson in failure? After months of silence and public outrage, the Houston Ship Channel Bridge project was given a second chance. But this time, the vision had changed completely. Gone were the sleek, slender pylons and futuristic silhouettes. In their place, a far more conservative, robust design focused on one thing only: safety. The new plan replaced the original cable-stayed structure with a simpler, more traditional configuration. Engineers reinforced every aspect of the bridge, from the foundations deep below the channel to the load-bearing decks above. This version might never grace architectural magazines, but it would stand the test of time, and that, in the eyes of many, was the real victory. Officials made transparency a priority. Every design step was now double-checked by independent reviewers, and safety audits were conducted continuously rather than retrospectively. The message was clear: Houston would no longer gamble with engineering. In the process, something larger began to shift. Across the country, the Houston Bridge disaster sparked new conversations about how infrastructure is planned and approved. Universities began using it as a case study in engineering ethics. Federal agencies tightened guidelines for major bridge projects, requiring more rigorous third-party reviews. Even private developers took notice, realizing that chasing visual impact without technical discipline can destroy both budgets and reputations. One senior engineer involved in the redesign later admitted, "We learned the hard way that architecture can inspire, but physics always wins." Today, construction on the revised bridge is back on track. Though progress is deliberately slower, the new version may not draw tourists or win design awards, but it represents something more meaningful: reliability. When completed, it will safely carry tens of thousands of vehicles every day across one of America's busiest shipping channels, a bridge built not for glory, but for generations. Still, the shadow of the original project lingers. The collapsed ambitions, the wasted billions, and the shattered trust have left a permanent mark on how Texans view public megaprojects. For many, the Houston Ship Channel Bridge stands as a reminder that engineering is not about what looks impressive, but what endures. In the end, this story isn't just about a failed bridge, it's about the thin line between vision and vanity. The Houston Ship Channel Bridge could have been a monument to progress. Instead, it became a monument to humility, a symbol of what happens when ambition outruns caution, and a lasting lesson that in engineering, prestige must always yield to safety.